Okay, now we're going to go to section 3.2, and we're going to talk about compound statements and connectives, okay? So before we start talking about what compound statement is, we're going to list off our connectives. And these are just English words you're very used to using. And the connectives that we're going to use are and, or, if-then statements, and then if and only if statements. Okay, we're going to talk about this. These are things we use in English, but they're also logical connectives. So, for example, and these connectives, a fact is connectives connect simple statements, like the statements we just dealt with in the last section. Okay, so we're going to start with and statements. So I'm going to erase this here. We're going to start with and statements first and get acquainted with each of these and kind of think about how they work. So if I give you two statements, P, it is the morning, and Q, I am hungry. Those are both simple statements. They just make a statement of a potential fact, okay, or not fact. So how would I write? It is the morning, and I am hungry. Okay, so now that's a compound statement using and. So the question is, what's the symbol I use for and? Well, the symbol in logic for and is an upside down V like that. Kind of weird. You just got to get used to these symbols. That's the symbol for and. So the way I'd write this is, it is the morning. Okay, well, let me do that in a different color here. It is the morning is the statement P. And the statement I am hungry is the statement Q. So the way I'd write this is P and Q. Is how I'd write that statement. Okay, P and Q. So right now we're just practicing writing these statements in the notation. So this would be my answer. That's how I'd write the statement. Okay? Now let's talk about an or. How does or work? Well, or uses the right side up V. That's the symbol we use. So if I say this is my statement R, Tom is a waiter, is my statement. And my statement S is Tom is a carpenter. Okay. Then how would I write Tom is a waiter or a carpenter? How would I write that statement in using symbolic logic? We call this symbolic logic. It'd be R or S. That upside down, that V means or. Okay, so right now we're practicing. We're practicing. Okay, now an if-then statement. So we often use these, right? If-then we use an arrow. Okay, so if I have a P that says it is Friday, that's my statement one. And then let's do a Q statement. I will give you $100 is my second statement. Okay? Then I could say, write the compound statement, if it is Friday, then, this is an if then, I will give you $100. Okay? So if it is Friday, then I will give you $100. That's a compound statement using an if then. So what I do is I start off with the thing in front of the if, and then I end with the thing, the second statement. So this would be, this is my statement P right here, and this is my statement Q, right? So the way I write this is P implies Q, which reads if P then Q. That's how we write that. So this would be my answer right here. And this is what it means, which connects to this actual statement. Okay, so that's the if then. Okay. And then we have the if and only if. And we use a double arrow. Whoops. We use a double arrow for that one. Okay, so going back to it is Friday, we'll do the same statement. I shouldn't have erased that probably, but that's okay. This takes a little extra time. It is Friday, and then Q, I'll change the statement. It is Friday, we will eat a hot dog. Okay, so I could say we will eat a hot dog if and only if it is Friday. Okay, so again, we've got a statement here, which is my P statement. We've got a statement here, which is my Q statement, and it's connected with this if and only if statement. It's connected with this if and only if statement, right? So the way I write that is P with the double arrow Q. Okay, what this means in English, guys, is that if I say we will eat a hot dog if and only if it is Friday, what that means is that the only time we're eating a hot dog is Friday. Because if I eat a hot dog Thursday, then that's going to violate this statement, wouldn't it? Because we only eat a hot dog if and only if it is Friday. Okay, so this is a very strong conditional statement. Okay? So that's an introduction to what these symbols are and how these these compound statements connect to simple statements with an and, an or, an if then, or an if and only if. Okay, now all these tables are in the book, and you might want to reference those or print them, or take some screenshots of them and get them on a separate sheet of paper because they'll help you at the beginning. But again, this is the and table. The or table, we don't have one for it because or, there's not that many alternate wordings for or, but I'll explain what I mean by that. But P and Q can be worded several different ways in English. You could say it is after 5 p.m. and they are working. You could say it is after 5 p.m. but they are working. But means the same thing as and in logic. Yet means the same thing, and nevertheless. If it is after 5 p.m., nevertheless they are working. That basically means that it's after 5 and they're working, right? Same with all these statements. They all really just mean the same thing. So these are just different ways to word and in English, but they all have the same symbol. They all use the same symbol right here. And again, same with the if then. There's different ways in English to say if then and really mean the same thing. So if then, and we got some things in between there. That's where the ... If P then Q, Q if P, a person is male if that person is a father. Notice they just kind of they just change the order of the if. So it's if another way I could word this is, if that person is a father, then the person is a male. But they worded a person is a male if. So the thing that follows the if is still the P in the conditional statement. These are called conditional statements. The ones that have the if-thens or the if and only ifs are conditional. P is sufficient for Q. Being a father is sufficient for being a male, is another way of saying if you're a father, then you're a male. Q is necessary for P. That goes backwards. That's kind of a hard one. P only if Q is another way to say if P, then Q. Only if Q, P, only if a person is male is that person a father. Okay? So some of the orders are reversed on here. You're going to have to kind of weed through those, but in English those would be the same thing. And then here's the table for the different wordings of if and only if. We're going to do some examples that will use some of these. But I wanted to at least show you these tables exist, and they'll help you initially to get acquainted with how the English relates to the logic symbols. Okay, let's do some examples. Okay, this problem is from the book, and they're basically having you use the wording in English to form a symbolic logic representation of this, and we'll do some examples. We're going to do the evens. You're going to do some of the ones like the odds in your homework. So let's look at number 20 first, okay? So P is the statement, you are human. Q is the statement, you have feathers. So it says, you are not human if you have feathers. So another way to write that is if you have feathers. Just that fits more the pattern, then you are not human. They reversed the order in English there, but this means the same thing. So this is my first statement, if you have feathers, and my second statement, then you are not human. So how I'd write that is, first of all, you have feathers is the statement Q, correct? So this would be Q, and then we do the arrow because it's an if then, it's not an if and only if. And you are not human. Well, P is you are human, so wouldn't you are not human be not P? You got to take account for the not. So that's my answer for that one. Okay, let's erase. Let's do the next one. Just getting some practice on some of these and writing them. Let's do 22. Not having feathers is necessary for being human. So not having feathers is necessary for being a human means basically that if you are a human, then you better not have feathers. Right? Because if it's necessary, if you're a human, it's necessary that you don't have feathers. That means that if you are a human, then you do not have feathers. So you got to get used to wording these properly. So again, now my first statement is this, and my second statement is that. Well, the you are a human statement, that's the P. Then we got my arrow. Then you do not have feathers. That would be a not Q. P implies not Q. Okay, let's erase and do the next one. Let's do 24. Having feathers is sufficient for not being human. Having feathers is sufficient for not being human. That means so if I underline here a bit, you go back to your table that I had up a minute ago, being human is sufficient for second statement, not having feathers. So being human is the statement P, and that implies not having feathers is again not Q. You see the theme? These are all just the same thing. Okay. Now 26 is kind of interesting. You're human only if you do not have feathers. You're human only if you don't have feathers. So what does that mean? That means, basically, you're human only if you do not have feathers. That means that if you are a human, you better have no feathers. So you see, these are all the same thing. So again, my first statement, if you are human, then you don't have feathers. So here we go again, same thing. So these are all just different wordings, right? For the same thing. P implies not Q. Okay, so that's kind of an introduction on how to map this out. You've got to get used to these different wordings. They're going to test you on these. You might want to have those tables out, start to get acquainted, but sometimes if you're just good at the English and learning how to make the same statement that means the same thing, then you get used to these ifs and thens and these only ifs and these ands and these ors. Okay, let's do some more problems from the book. So now what they're going to do is they're going to give us some statements. Okay, this one and this one right here. Okay, and now that we have those two statements, we're going to look at the symbolic logic, and we're going to try to use this symbolic logic representation to word these statements accurately. Okay, so let's look at number 42. Not Q. Let's first figure out what not Q is. Not Q would be, it is not the 4th of July, right? And then R, the statement R, which is my other statement that's in here, right here, R and not Q are my two statements. Okay. R would be, we are having a barbecue. BBQ. So if I'm going to do, and then this symbol means what? And. So we would say, the statement would be, it is not July 4th, right? I'm just abbreviating here. And we are not having a BBQ. So that means it's a day other than 4th of July, and we're not having a barbecue. Oh, sorry, my bad. It's wrong. And we are having a barbecue. My bad. I didn't negate that. Let me fix this. I made it. Having a barbecue. I put not in there. It shouldn't be. So this is my final statement right here. So that's how I do the symbolic logic. Let's erase this, and let's do number 44. Practice some of these. Number 44. Okay, Q or not R. Okay, so let's map this out. What's Q? Well, Q is, it is July 4th. That's Q, right? Not R would be, we are not having a BBQ. So Q or not R would be, it is 7/4 or we are not having a BBQ. That would be my answer. These are not really super hard. Not super hard at all. Just learning how to use the symbols and how to write the sentences. Okay. So let's do 46. Okay. Q is, it is July 4th. Not R, which is my second part. is we are not having a BBQ. Okay, so Q implies not R, or if then, right? Means that if it is 7-4, then we are not having a barbecue. Okay, so that means on July 4th, we are not having a barbecue. So that's my final answer for that one. Okay, and then we're going to quickly go through 48. And 48 says, Q, if and only if not, R. I'm going to do this one on the fly. So Q is, it is 7-4. The double arrow means if and only if. We are not having a barbecue, because that would be not R. Okay, so this part, whoops. So this part right here is Q. And this part right here is not R. Okay? Okay, now we do it with 3 statements. We've got, this statement, we've got this statement, and that statement, okay? So now we need to use all 3. Let's look at 60. So if the temperature outside is freezing, then the heater is working or the house is not cold. So this is an if then, so I'm going to have an arrow. Let's just do this on the fly. If the temperature outside is freezing, well, that's just P, isn't it? Then the heater is working or the house is not cold. So I'm going to want to put this whole thing in parentheses because there's a compound statement there that P implies, or if P, then this compound statement. And the compound statement is the heater is working, which is Q, or, this is or, the house is not cold. Wouldn't that be not R? Okay, so that would be number 60. If then is this part, and then the or, and then we had a not. So you got to look for these key words. Keywords. Okay, let's look at 62. It is not the case that if the house is cold, then the heater is not working. So, first of all, it is not the case. That's the not symbol. And then what's not the case? This whole statement we're about to say. It is not the case that if the house is cold, then the heater is not working. So this is an if then. So it is not the case that if the house is cold, that's R, then the heater is not working, not Q. So it is not the case. So a lot of times you have to think about parentheses, guys, because it's not the case that this whole statement is true. Okay? So you gotta, the parentheses are kind of challenging in these problems, but with practice you will get it. And again, a lot of this comes down to being kind of good at English and just being able to recognize where parentheses kind of exist in English even though they're not stated. If the heater is working, okay, then the temperature outside is freezing if and only if the house is cold. Okay, so let's look at this. So I've got an if then going on here. I'm gonna do something interesting here. I got a first statement, then I've got my arrow for my if then, and then I've got a second statement. So it first says if the heater is working. Okay, so that would be Q. Oops, put that black. That would be Q. Because that means the heater is working is Q. That's the statement Q. Then on this side, I'm going to have some parentheses because I've got another whole compound statement on the other side of the then. So when we have a compound statement on the other side of a then, we should put a parenthesis. Then the temperature outside is freezing. That'd be P. If and only if is the double arrow. The house is cold, R. So that'd be my final answer. Okay? So these are kind of challenging. I'm going to leave you with that. We've done some examples of with 2 and with 3 statements, and I think you'll be able to get through most of the homework with those examples. I've actually taken these from the book.